United Guyana is shifting, and today we hear from one of the voices driving that change. This week on Sources, we sit down with Amanza Walton-Desir, the former APNU AFC Member of Parliament who recently stunned the nation by resigning from both the National Assembly and the People's National Congress reform. Her next move? Launching a brand new political party, Forward Guyana. Why did she walk away from one of Guyana's largest political parties? What's behind her bold decision to lead a new party into the heat of an election year? And what does her coalition with the People's Movement and VPAC signal about the future of Guyana's political landscape? Today, we get the answers straight from the source. This is Sources. Stay with us. Good evening and welcome to Sources. I'm your host, Svetlana Marshall. With me tonight, I have an attorney at law, a mother, former member of parliament, and the presidential candidate of Forward Guyana Movement, Amanza Walton-Desir. Amanza, thank you so much for joining me here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
How have you been?
It's been hectic. It's been hectic, but rewarding. I feel encouraged and deeply, deeply humbled, by the reception that we've been getting as we move across the country. So we're energized, we're fired up and ready to go. Yeah.
Just over a month ago, you took a decision to, one, resign from the People's National Congress reform and the broader body, a Partnership for National Unity. But importantly, you launched your own political party. You've moved from forming that party to meeting the requirements set out by the Ghana Elections Commission, having your list of candidates approved, and now you're in full swing headed for that September 1 general and regional elections. You're contesting in 7 of the electoral districts. Was it a difficult task preparing in such a short period?
Oh, it was absolutely a difficult task, but it was one of the most rewarding experiences of my political life so far, to understand the groundwork that goes into preparing a party to contest in general and regional elections is an insight that I would not trade for anything. And so myself and the team, we were working around the clock, literally 22 hours. And every day we break for an hour or so rest, and we had rotations where this person would rest and another person would jump in and take over, because it is really a lot of work. And as a newer movement, you don't have the luxury of assuming support. So you don't have a Rolodex that you could go to and pull names and know that they will support you. We literally had to hit the ground, hit the regions, meet the people one-on-one, share with them our vision, and have them sign up as nominators. And so that work and that experience has been life-changing. It has been perspective-changing. And for me, the fact that we were able to do that within such a short time, I think validated what I understood the cry of the Guyanese people to be, that we want different, we want new, we want to change this political system. And so it's an invaluable experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
What is your vision for Guyana? What exactly you've been saying to the man on the ground?
That we have done the same thing for the last 60 years. That we have been we've been strapped with a winner-takes-all system that continues to be the bane of our existence and our development in this country. That we can no longer labor under a political system where you get 51% of the votes, but you get 100% of the power. We have done that for 60 years and it has not worked. And so it is up to us, if we want to see different for Guyana, to do different. And people have bought into that vision. And I say to them that Forward Guyana Movement presents a credible option for them at the polls, unmarred by difficulties, unmarred by scandals. We enjoy, I believe, a very good relationship and reputation internationally. And so we present a very credible option for the people of Guyana who are looking to have more representation in the National Assembly, who are looking for a way to come out of this morass where every 5 years we're promised we will do this, we will do that, and then when you get in, it's a different story. How do we make sure that power is actually returned to the people? How do we make sure that the sovereignty that the Constitution of Guyana says belongs to the people is actually exercised by the people? And so going from Region 6 to Region 1 and having those conversations, it was a remarkable experience, and people have bought into that vision, and I'm deeply encouraged by that, Svetlana.
Which of the regions you're not contesting in?
7, 8, and 9 we're not contesting in regionally, but because we have been able to meet the minimum requirements, we will appear on the national ballot in all of the 10 districts for the upcoming election, because GCOM requires that you participate in a minimum of 6. We have been able to raise candidates, and excellent candidates, in those 7 regions. We have doctors, lawyers, we have homemakers, we have women farmers who have all stepped up. We have the first person with disability to be a national candidate on our list, and 67% of our candidates list is female, and mostly women under 50. And so it is really indicative of our people wanting different, our people wanting more, and our people wanting to take charge of their destiny. One of the things that I have to mention that we encountered is the tremendous fear of victimization.
So persons are concerned that should they...
Persons are concerned, and it is
associate
the lived reality, because I've had one female candidate who was a businesswoman, and who, because she said she stepped forward and decided to make a change, her photo was seen, and a client called and said, well, I can't do business with you any longer because of your political support. So I say that to say that we have to shake the shackles of fear off. And I'm so proud of that candidate. She said, well, thank you for your business over the years. I'm happy that I understand where you truly stand. Because if me standing to make a democratic choice will affect our business relations, then so be it. And that level of courage that she demonstrated really has been the wind, I think, beneath my wings, because these are so many of the stories that we get every day where, the courage that it took for you to do what you do, we are ready and willing to walk and to match that and to say, you know what, we're not going to be held back in fear. You want to take your account? Take your account. But we will stand up, we will speak out. And you also see that intimidation being exercised by the current PPPC administration, where correspondents in their WhatsApp groups, it was leaked, and you saw them saying, oh, mark their face, isn't this body's brother or whoever. And so I want to put everybody on notice that we're going to be watching. We're going to be looking to see whether people who have jobs, etc., with the government and are actively and openly lobbying and campaigning on behalf of the PPPC government, I will be looking to see the treatment to any Forward Guyana Movement candidate, or for that matter, any candidate from any other political party that is singled out for victimization because they chose to raise their voice in the exercise of their democratic right. And it will be internationalized and it will be pursued to the fullest extent of the law, because this nonsense has to stop.
Now, let me take you back just before nominations day. You took a decision, your party, Forward Guyana, took a decision to coalesce, in a sense, with two other movements or political parties, VPAC and the People's Movement. What were the factors, or what influenced your decision to coalesce with these two political parties?
Because you can't do it alone. You can't do it alone. And I have found in my interactions with both Nigel London, who is now the prime ministerial candidate, and Mr. Darwin Bess of VPAC, that what united us was greater than what we disagreed upon. And I think the principles, coalition is built around understanding of principles and of shared ideas, ideals for the country and for the people of this country. And so, it's not by any shot a coalition of angels, but I will say that we have not benefited or participated in corruption, and that for me was an important ingredient in deciding to come together. And of course, like I said, the recognition that you can't do it alone, but the People's Movement, they've been doing very good work in the community. They have been very outspoken during the Adriana Young case, and I after hours and hours and days of discussion and deliberation, we realized that, okay, we have enough of a common vision for this country to form the basis of a coalition.
Okay, so now you came out of a coalition because PNC,
I came out of the PNC.
Formed a major part of the APNU, the Partnership for National Unity, to form your own party, but also to coalesce with two other parties. Do you believe that you'll make a greater impact with the parties that you've coalesced with than that of the APNU? Help us understand, what's the difference?
The difference, I believe, is in where we want to see the country go. And I came out of the PNC because, like I've said on so many interviews before now, in essence, the conditions no longer were suitable for me to grow and to thrive and to operate in those circumstances. I have stayed very far away from commenting negatively on the members of the PNC, because I absolutely love them. They're my Guyanese brothers and sisters. And for me, when people get to know me, that is just how I am. I do not go about the place, trying to evoke mischief and scandal. But I found that it no longer accommodated the breadth of the vision that I believe at a personal level I have been maybe purposed to do. And so it was a deeply personal, deeply almost spiritual and emotional decision for me to make. But I'm glad I made it, because the fact that we have been able to accomplish what we have accomplished vindicated that. And I know a lot of people, because you hear the naysayers, oh, they're never going to make it, they're never going to qualify. Do they know what goes into qualifying for a general and regional election? And now that we have qualified, oh, they'll never get 1,000 votes, they'll never get this. But we persist and we persevere, because I truly believe that Guyana has had enough of politicians now. Guyana needs leaders, and leaders with a heart for the people, and leaders who will have to take hard decisions, even though people may think, oh, it is politically not savvy. There's a time in every country's life when a core of people have to stand up and say, you know what, we are going to do the hard but necessary work. And I think Forward Guyana, I know Forward Guyana is about doing the hard but necessary work. So for me to remain in the PNC and acknowledge that, you know what, this winner-takes-all system is not going to work for Guyana. It could work at a personal level if you want the shelter of a large institution and you are about your own advancement, then absolutely it is ideal. But at a deeper level, at a more fundamental level, I've always been about Guyana. It's never been about Amanza. And you know, so I hear when people say, oh, you're selfish, is this? I smile. Because for me, the selfish thing would be to remain in comfort, to remain in the shelter of an older institution. And as people would say, oh, bide your time and wait until you get to the top. It has never been about that for me at a personal level. At a personal level, and there are a number of people in politics like this, if only we would recognize them, that have the ability to thrive and grow, but they've chosen to stay and to serve this country. And so it has never been about personal aggrandizement or ego. It is about understanding that if there's not a remnant of people that will stand up and say, you know what, we have to change this. Even if it puts us at a disadvantage personally, this has to stop. And so for me, that is the paradigm within which it was formed. Yeah.
Now let me in on your manifesto and the contract. Recently, you just launched the contract with the people.
Yes.
You've spoken about, this vision for Guyana, about having a system that works for everybody. Mm-hmm. What are some of the primary issues, policies, and programs mm-hmm. you intend to champion and your party?
Well, we are so pleased to have launched our contract with the people of Guyana. And
why is it to call it contract?
I was just going to come to that. No, well, there are two parts. There's a manifesto. But this contract is our overarching philosophical commitment with the people of Guyana. Because what we're not going to get into is a bidding war. Oh, we'll give you 200. Oh, I'll give you 5. Oh, we'll do this. We want the people of Guyana to know that we are taking a sober, measured approach to our development. And so the contract embodies our vision, our commitment at a deeper level with the people of Guyana. And flowing out of that, you will see then the disaggregation of the various sectors and the offerings that we are bringing to the people of Guyana. What you will see permeating everything that we do is the element of inclusivity, of accountability, and of integrity, and absolutely sustainability. It is reckless to say to the people of Guyana that I will do X and Y and Z if you cannot demonstrate how it is sustainable. And that is why we are taking, it seems that we're taking a little bit, but we want, when we put something out there, to make sure that the people of Guyana understand that we're not going to be bidding for your attention for the next 5 years, that this is a long-term national strategic plan to develop not only the country, but the people of Guyana. For a very long time, the emphasis has been on everything but our people. And another feature that you'll find in our contract and the manifesto that you would have seen is the commitment to systemic change. A lot of what is being promised by some other parties is being promised within the context of a system that is broken. And so what we are saying to the people of Guyana is, look, we have to fix this on 2 levels. We have to fix the broken system, and we have to improve your lives simultaneously. And so we will be, we've addressed the issue of increases, of the way we look at taxes, of the way we will deliver real change to people and their quality of living. I am so proud of the economic team that we've put together, because these are men and women in Guyana, in the diaspora, who have sat down and have thought this out. And so I smiled the other day when I saw that there was a war of manifestos and who did what first. And it occurred to me that nobody has a monopoly on ideas. And so, yes, some will mirror some, because nobody has a monopoly on ideas. What matters is people with the will to execute these things. I saw, and one of the features of our manifesto was the issue of crop insurance. I saw that the PPP launched crop insurance in Region 2 recently. What prevented it from happening all the time? The point is that at a deeper level, our political leaders understand what the people of Guyana need, but they have refused to do it because it has always been kept for political mileage and to play a political football with the people. And Forward Guyana will end that, because we will do what is right for the people, and as soon as it can be done. And look at the way that the housing sector is managed. Absolutely abysmal. Because a lot more can be done to make sure that Guyanese are able to have affordable housing. But you know what? It is reserved and used as a political football. And so the paradigm is what I'm getting at. And you will see in our contract, in our manifesto, that there will be a marked difference and a departure. What we will offer is a sober, temperate approach to managing this. We're not going to be reckless and almost drunk in our approach to this, because we're not prepared to lie to the people of Guyana. We could say, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But when you look at the element of sustainability, importantly, we will fix the basics.
Tell me some of the basics that you intend to fix. I know
Cost of living. Cost of living.
How will you address
there
that?
There has to be serious intervention in terms of cost of living. One of the things that we will champion is the subsidization of basic food items. You know, the term price control, people seem to think that it is a bad thing. But you look to Barbados, and they implemented price controls on basic food items, because they recognized that there was a level of gouging going on. And so we have to help to cushion the cost of rising food prices for our people, for basic food items. We have to expand the social safety nets that are currently available. I note that one of the things that I've advocated for in a personal capacity for years is a public transport system. I note that the Barajagdi was recently announced, a transportation grant. But that does not accomplish what a safe, reliable public transportation system will accomplish. So that is what you talk about when we talk about carefully thought out developmental plans, and not just throwing money temporarily at a problem. Now, so those are some of the measures. Of course, salary increases for public servants. Absolutely abysmal that our teachers are the lowest paid in the Caribbean, second only to Haiti rather. How does one justify that with the fastest growing economy? It is incongruent. Our nurses are being paid less. They are importing nurses and paying them $1,500 US dollars per month. We are saying pay our own that, because people do not up and leave their country. Up and leaving your country is not something that you just do. It has to be extreme circumstances that generally force people to uproot themselves and their families to go live in a new place to earn a living. So why can't we pay our nurses what we're going to be paying the Bangladeshi nurses that we are bringing into the country? It is absolutely doable. But what you have is a lack of a political will to do it, and the continued disrespect of our public servants. We will end that by making sure that we look at adjustments, realistic adjustments in PAYE, etc., so that there is more disposable income in the people's pocket. You'll see a raft of measures as it relates to infrastructure, as it relates to climate resilient infrastructure. Because again, sustainability is tied to the way we execute infrastructure projects. Because the PPP and the current paradigm of this government continues to be to ignore the issues of climate change, to ignore the fact that in all of our infrastructure projects, climate resilience has to be built into that. It is almost like if they completely disregarded this is a clear and present danger, particularly because of our low-lying coast. And so if we are to focus on building climate resilient infrastructure, of proper quality, it will mean that instead of having to dig up the concussion highway every year to fix it, you are able to build roads and highways that last you 2 to 3 decades into the future. The savings that you will get from that.
Now, you spoke a lot about...
I mean, I could go on, but
ensuring whatever is being promised is sustainable. And you mentioned, of course, some parties mentioned tax reduction, increasing the threshold, some cases reducing VAT. Other parties spoke about the issuance of cash grants. Are you saying that a lot of what you're seeing out there already, they're not sustainable? That's what you're saying.
I'm saying that a lot of it, when tested, falls short. A lot of it, when tested, falls short. And this issue of cash grants, it has its place. I was deeply offended when Irfan Ali said to the people of Guyana to take $100,000 to build generational wealth. It was insulting. You don't build generational wealth by creating a nation dependent on handouts. You build generational wealth by ensuring Guyanese have access to free land, by ensuring that Guyanese have affordable access to financing of housing. You build generational wealth by looking at, for example, the insurance sector and helping people to plan their lives by having affordable premiums, for life insurance, etc. That's how you build generational wealth. You build generational wealth by opening savings account for young Guyanese and issuing bonds that they can cash in when they get to a certain age, so that they at least know that whilst they are growing, they have means accruing as they get older. That is how you build, and you talk about building generational wealth. But to give people $100,000 and say, oh, we're giving you money, when in 1 week it is done and depleted, how are you going to tell them to build generational wealth? Irfan doesn't go into the market, so he doesn't know how expensive food items are. So the point is that we have to craft real genuine solutions to the people of Guyana to build with. And I'm saying that we can absolutely do it. The current population of Guyanese in country and in the diaspora doesn't reach 5 million. And understand that if we're to talk about the Guyanese who are living at home and the Guyanese abroad, it is a small population irrespective of how you look at it. And with oil wealth flowing now at about $10 million US per day, there is no excuse for Guyanese living in the manner that we are living. What we have to absolutely reject is being made footballs in a political system. And to do that, we have to change the system first. And of course, you'll see in the coming days, we'll be breaking out various aspects of the manifesto, and we have some very capable spokespersons on various aspects of it, and so you'll see them coming to the people of Guyana, explaining to them, why did we arrive at this, how did we arrive at this, so that the people of Guyana understand that we're not just out here selling you dreams. We will expose you to our reasoning as to how we got here, because ultimately, Svetlana, the development of Guyana is not one manifesto, it's a long conversation that we're going to have with the people of Guyana.
You mentioned the oil and gas industry, and of course Guyana has other resources that has helped to build its economy over the years. But of course, in recent years, the focus since 2019 has been on the oil and gas industry, booming industry. What do you propose to ensure, one, the resources benefit the people now, but also there's some left for future generation?
And I'm glad you made that point, because the coming of the oil industry has sort of signaled the death knell for our non-oil sector, and that ought not to be, because that is the quintessential Dutch disease that we've been warned about for decades, and this current government is making the same mistake. Management of the oil sector is the key word. And I look at Barra Jagdeo, and all I could do is shake my head, because you recall that between 2015 to 2020, there was a lot of noise about the oil contract and the management of it. And what is the first thing that they do? They go in, they disband the Department of Energy, promising that within 6 months there will be a petroleum commission. Up to now, it hasn't been brought into fruition. So the management of our oil sector is left up to Barra Jagdeo and people like Bobby Gosai of the audit scandal fame. And so that is who's managing the oil sector, not doing like countries like Ghana that have a petroleum commission in place, or let's say Norway that has a national oil company, etc. Not looking at the examples of countries that have gone this way before and that have set up robust institutional arrangements to make sure that the management of the sector, first and foremost, is left in the hands of capable, competent professionals and technicians. What Jagdeo has done is completely politicized the management of oil, and that is the danger of that. So the first issue is the management of the oil sector. The second issue squarely before us is, and this ties in directly to the management of the oil sector, is how do we maximize the returns on what we're getting now? And I know there's a big buzzword about, renegotiation, etc., etc. Renegotiation is dependent on capacity. Who was negotiating this on our behalf? Jagdeo? And then of course there's the issue of sanctity of contract. To my mind, the more critical issue is management. How are we managing the sector that we currently have? And of course, agreements with our development partners will evolve over time. That is the nature of business and the nature of development.
Are you saying as against pushing for, or are you saying that management of what we have, the PSA, the agreement we have currently in place is what's important, and not necessarily
I am saying
renegotiating
that I'm saying that eventually renegotiation will happen. That is the nature of business. That is the nature of business. But renegotiation does not happen in a vacuum. What are you renegotiating to get more for, to manage how, is what we have to ask ourselves. So the 10 million US that we're getting per day, have we set up the management infrastructure to make sure that it is being properly managed, that Guyana's interests are represented? And it's a resounding no. You will need a cadre of international lawyers. You will need strong technical people to do that. And it's interesting that this is what Jagdeo was harping on when he was out of government, and now that he is in government, he has completely politicized the management of the sector. Notwithstanding that, he's failed, Skeldon, the fiber optic cable, on so many of the large projects. And of course, recently, the gas to shore that has been stalled. So I guess what you are hearing from me is that we have to be realistic. And what I will promise to the people of Guyana is that we're going to tell you the truth at all times, even if it is uncomfortable. The reality is we have to first manage what we have. Because if you cannot manage what you have, you do yourself a disservice by talking about things about renegotiation. So for me, renegotiation would look like arming Guyana with a battery of the best law firms in the world, the best technical expertise that we can afford now, to be able to negotiate contracts that put us in a more advantaged position.
Let's talk now about the territorial controversy with Venezuela. In the last parliament, you served as the shadow foreign affairs minister, and you spoke extensively on this controversy. Now, just before the end of that parliament, there was a motion put by the government, and the opposition took a decision to walk out. Since then, two members of parliament, or persons who were members of parliament under the APNU-AFC, who have since resigned from the coalition, from the PNC, and have now crossed over to the PPP. They said that move was reckless. They denounced it. What's your thought? Were you entirely in support of that move? Do you see it as reckless, or do you agree with the APNU-AFC that, hey, we were not included in the in discussions, we've been locked out of meetings at the committee level, the parliamentary committee? What are your thoughts?
It's interesting that I understand both perspectives. I absolutely understand the leader of the opposition, his then take on the matter, because it was about an end to the disrespect. I also understand the importance of standing together on this issue. I also understand, because I was on the receiving end of it, that the PPPC government is callous, and they believe that people could be treated with disdain and only called upon when needed. I think, though, what would have helped the situation was a robust public awareness campaign on why this posture was necessary, why, whilst we completely stand behind the territorial sovereignty and the integrity of this nation, puppetry by the PPPC is not going to be tolerated. Because if a line was not drawn in the sand, they would feel that they could not convene the select committee, they could disregard all of the interventions that we've made nationally, but then go cry wolf when it is time for us to stand together. I will share this that I've never shared publicly, but I think I will share it now. At the meeting that we had sometime in May, at which I was privileged to be a part with Irfan Ali, I said to him very, very clearly, if we're going to stand together on Venezuela, let's do just that. Do not call us when you need backup, as it were. Let the people of Guyana see that we are actually ad idem on this matter of our territorial integrity and our sovereignty. Convene the sectoral committee so that the people of Guyana could see us taking reports, working together, putting our heads together to solve a problem that will affect all of us, but mostly the poor and working class Guyanese. Because like I said to him, when all of this blows up, the rich ones, your friends and your families and favorites, are going to up and leave. And it's the ordinary working class, poor Guyanese that can't afford to leave that will face the brunt of it. I said, so the people need to see that we are mature enough to make concessions where concessions need to be made. They committed that within a week the Sectoral Committee on Foreign Relations would be convened. It never was. They committed to a joint education program. Never did. We made recommendations. I put forward a very comprehensive 5-point plan for our foreign policy imperatives for the next 2 years. None of it was regarded. And so at some point in time, a line has to be drawn in the sand. And so I said, I understand both perspectives on this matter.
Now, still on Venezuela, due to the socio-economic challenges facing that country, we've seen and experienced an influx of Venezuelan in Guyana. How do you intend, should you enter the next parliament, to make representation or government even to address this immigration?
By the implementation of a Guyana and Guyanese first immigration policy,
Tell me more about
unapologetically.
that.
Look, we cannot have a situation in our country where Venezuelans, who by and large are people who are here seeking a livelihood, fleeing from circumstances in their country, but with an understanding, misguided albeit, that Essequibo belongs to them. It cannot be something that we turn a blind eye to. It has to be regulated. I put forward in the National Assembly a number of measures for registration, for tracing, for tracking, reporting responsibilities. There are, in our estimation, over 170,000 Venezuelans scattered throughout this country now.
Well, the number moved from about 30,000 or 29,000 to just before that sham election in May that Venezuela was alleging that it was going to hold. With regards to the Essequibo, the Foreign Secretary indicated that there were approximately 100,000.
It has always been that way, Svetlana. That 20,000 number was something that IOM developed as a benchmark because they could not track all of the entrances across our very porous borders with Venezuela. And so we have to be very diligent, very, very diligent in making sure that we record, we track, and we require reporting of migrants within our country. Guyanese can't roll up in any other country and just live and exist and, do what they want. They have to abide by the laws. What we have to do is put the laws in place that we will require economic migrants from Venezuela to follow. We cannot treat them, for example, like the Haitian migrants. Well, that might not be a great example because the PPPC administration has been extremely discriminatory in its treatment of Haitian migrants. But we cannot treat them, that category of migrants, like any other because of the simmering territorial dispute that we have and because the injection of Venezuelan population into Guyana is an avenue for a soft invasion. We effectively have a soft invasion happening. And we have a government that is either too asleep to admit it or who were architects of this population influx and it has now gotten away from them. Because one of the interesting features that we've had recently is this introduction by Anil Nandlal of xenophobia into our electoral lexicon. Never heard before. But because we know that they have, through that engineering that they've done with the Registration of Births and Deaths Act, conferred Guyanese citizenship on people who are not entitled to it and who can't even speak a syllable of English. We know that is why he is now running around striking fear into people about, if you question people and whatever, you're being xenophobic and instilling fear in polling officers, etc., because they know what they have done. They are to be blamed fairly and squarely for this problem that we have today. The other thing that we will work immediately on is changing the laws. The law as it relates to Commonwealth citizens, etc., is archaic. You should not be able to come in here and after 1 year you are registered, given an ID, etc. It should be a minimum of 7 to 10 years before you are eligible to become a naturalized citizen of Guyana. Our focus has to be on attracting the diaspora Guyanese back home, bringing them back home to say, bring your knowledge. We don't want just financial remittances alone. We want knowledge remittance too. We want you to come and bring your skills back here to help build this country. So that has to happen within a very strong migration and policy and legal framework. Brings me to the issue of GCOM and our electoral role.
And I was going to ask about that.
Yeah.
With regards to the Venezuelans, over 100,000 Venezuelans here, according to the numbers provided by the Foreign Secretary. Are you concerned that in the compilation of the official list of electors, and I say official because that's the stage we're entering into, that there may very well be people who have no real connection with Guyana that are on that list?
In fact, we're certain that there are people with no real connection. The PPP did this deliberately when they gutted the Registration of Births and Deaths Act. And how did they do that? By affecting the late registration legal framework here. They gutted it of all of the safeguards and put in place that a Toshao could, or a JP could sign an affidavit saying Svetlana was born in Maikobi. This is her mother, this is her father, and this whole new person of Svetlana that never existed has now been invented and created. And with that affidavit, Svetlana goes to the registrar's office and she gets an identity. She gets a birth certificate or a certificate of late registration. And with that, because GCOM, no scrutineer is trained to go behind a birth certificate. So the authenticity of the birth certificate is not something GCOM has the legal or other capacity to question. So if I show up with a birth certificate that I got under those circumstances, I am as of right entitled to be entered onto the electoral roll. Now, we have as well a situation where there are possibly thousands of Bangladeshis in the country, and because they're a Commonwealth country, if they have a 2-year contract, they're here a year, they are already on our electors' roll. It's problematic because the margins in our political system are narrow. And so with the smallest of injection of certain people, you can skew the results and affect the entire course of this nation. So you have an electoral roll, almost the same size of your population, and I cannot look at that and say, okay, who's naturalized, who is a born Guyanese that has come of age, who is... You cannot decipher the manner in which they have appeared on the OLE, and that is a problem. Because I can't roll up in Bangladesh or Nigeria or any one of the Commonwealth countries and vote in their elections. But it's being allowed here. It is dangerous. And these are the issues that go unnoticed that will affect the course of this country unless Guyanese stop, look up, and take stock. But you know, I understand that this PPPC government has a paradigm of keeping Guyanese so bogged down with getting by in this country that these other very critical issues they can't even look up to address. And this is why Forward Guyana is here, because we are going to continue to represent on those issues. Just like how I sounded the alarm 4 years ago that this is going to be a problem. You see Ali now scrambling about migration and policy, when if the Foreign Relations Sectoral Committee had worked, we would have had a white paper and a framework to deal with migration up to now. So it's troublesome. It has to be addressed, and we have to roll up our sleeves and get it done.
Now, with regards to GCOM, just recently GCOM admitted that the revised list of electors had a flaw, sorry, in which Forward Guyana detected a situation in which information for an elector was completely changed and assigned to somebody else. In the case, it's fraud or theft of identity.
Yes. Whole identity
are you
theft.
Concerned that this may just not be a single
We
incident?
are absolutely concerned that this may not be a single incident. And GCOM has not done anything to instill confidence in us.
Well, it issued a press statement and it accepted that it erred and that it was working to ensure that concerns raised, issues detected would be brought to its attention and the list would be amended or rectified.
This is the same
Is that
GCOM.
sufficient?
No, this is the same GCOM that said it had robust procedures in place to detect this. So we're supposed to suddenly believe that you're addressing all of this after you have come out and prematurely said you're ready for elections. This is a problem. This is a problem. And I continue to be concerned that more of the political parties are not sounding their voices about this. This is a problem. It seems as if we're just going along a road. And I understand that you have to participate to maintain the life of our democracy. But certainly, we must go kicking and screaming.
Have you raised these issues with the observer missions and the international community?
We have.
The missions, the embassies?
We have. We have. But their role is to observe and take note and make recommendations. We, the people, have to prosecute our cases. We, the people, have to head up the court steps and challenge them every step of the way. We have to do it. We have to do it. And certainly the older parties that have the bandwidth, this is something that they should be actively pursuing and doing. You have, and we have had instances where in North Rumveld, for example, you have a man who has lived at one place for the last 60 years, check the list and realize that there are 4 people there that he's never heard of assigned to his address.
Well, the court ruled that residency was not a requirement.
Yes, but certainly there is fraud, and this is why there are claims and objections periods. And this is why, when we hearken back to my last address, I think it was in the National Assembly, I said GCOM's work plan was problematic because you cannot give 3 days for somebody to file an objection, because you know what that citizen had the right to do? To go to GCOM and to file an objection. I have lived here for the last 60 years. I don't know these people. They've never lived here. And I'm filing an objection. A process in GCOM ought to be kickstarted that says that a 48-hour notice has to be given for a hearing for those people who are being objected to and the objector and the objectee to appear. If you give 3 days, that whole process of claims and objections falls under its own weight. And so you have a list that is severely bloated and unchallenged because of just the irresponsible time frame that GCOM has put for filing of objections. By the time you file the objection, by the natural effluxion of time, you are out of time.
Now we're less than a month away from elections. What could be done at this stage?
I think on a point of order, lawsuits ought to be filed. I think on a point of order, lawsuits ought to be filed. And, you know, I've heard the lawyers complain about litigation fatigue, but I truly believe, and you know, Guyanese have deep concerns about the courts, but I truly believe that these things have to be challenged. They must be challenged. And it is something that we would certainly encourage be done, because when you get to a certain stage in your democracy, it is important for the courts to not only clarify issues, but where decisions might have been made, that when you realize at the practical level it has severe implications, such as this residency requirement judgment, that it may need to be reviewed, then judicial review ought to be applied for. This is the cut and thrust of a robust democracy, that we're not afraid to approach the court. Yes, okay, we feel that we don't get decisions that are, how do I say, we do not get decisions that are favorable in most instances, but that should not deter us. That is why the courts are there, and we should litigate until they get it right.
Now, one of the safeguards in place, at least at the electoral level, is the placement of polling agents at these polling places, polling stations. Now, parties have the responsibility to ensure that their agents are fielded across the country. Now, one political leader said, you know what, the reality is, besides the government, some of the parties, particularly the smaller parties, they would not be able to field 3,000 plus agents across this country, and that's the reality. Is it that, and he would have said, I think this is what Mr. Nigel Hughes would have said, that they're now working with parties within the opposition to collaborate in a sense. Have you been part of that collaboration, or is this something that you're open to doing?
We are a part of that collaboration. It just makes sense. It just makes sense that the newer parties like us, who will not have the bandwidth to cover every polling station, that we certainly collaborate to watch interest on the day of poll. I hope it is something that the APNU sees fit to be a part of, because there is certainly merit in that approach. It has nothing to do with campaigning or any such thing. It is about ensuring electoral integrity at the place of poll, at the ballot box, and certainly that is an ideal that the APNU, the AFC, the Forward Guyana Movement, the ALP, even WIN may be interested in collaborating on. But we have started talks with the AFC and the ALP on how we will strategically deploy our human resources on elections day to make sure that we have as wide coverage as we possibly can.
Okay. Now, 10 days before the general and regional elections are held on September 1, the joint services would go to the polls, the men and women in uniform. What would be your key message to them?
We are so indebted to the men and women in uniform for the role that they play in defending the sovereignty and integrity of this nation, to our police force, the good men and women in the police force who want to do a fine job. And certainly the importance of their role needs to be acknowledged. One of the things that we have proposed is looking at insurance at a certain level for particularly our servicemen and women deployed in high-risk areas, so that these men and women know that should, God forbid, something happen to them, their families are taken care of, and not dependent on the women fancy of who the Chief of Defense Staff is, but that because there is a system in place whereby their beneficiaries are, can live comfortably. We believe that housing for men and women in uniform ought to be certainly incentivized, so that what you will see is, if you are a police officer, for example, and you're serving 5 years, you are entitled to a house lot, at subsidized cost. Of course, if you want to leave before, then it will be prorated, but certainly incentivizing these men and women who are serving. We've had complaints recently of the police incentives, billions of dollars being paid out, but only paid out to friends, family, and favorites. No objective metrics to determine who would be entitled to the incentive. Those things have to be, by and large, systemized, so it takes away this element as far as possible of discretion that opens it up to abuse, and opens it up to, instead of it being an incentivization system, turns out to be a penalization system. So we are happy to support better risk pay for particularly our men and women in the armed forces stationed across the borders. Life and proper insurance for their beneficiaries. So there will, of course, be a raft of measures as it relates to increases, as it relates to other allowances that you'll see being rolled out over the next few days.
The other issue, just before we close this evening, I would like for you to address is the issue of femicide, the issue of domestic violence, the issue of child abuse. Mm-hmm. How do you intend to tackle these issues?
It has to be a two-pronged approach. We have to deal with the psychological triggers of these things. It has to do a lot with our socialization and our culture. There's deep work that has to be done about the way that we perceive women. Women have been objectified. We've been told that our place is in the kitchen. And so we come from a culture where women have always been seen as subservient and not as equal partners in the development of this nation. So we have to tackle the paradigm or the mindset. Then we have to deal with mental health support. We're losing too many of our men to the justice system because that ingredient of mental health support is absent. Our men folk have their struggles. And so when we talk about femicide, we do not do it lacking the recognition that our male counterparts have the struggle, and so that has to also be addressed. We want a whole of systems approach to this. So in addition to putting safe spaces and shelters in every region, in addition to putting new policies in place for the way that the Guyana police force responds to issues of domestic violence and issues of restraining orders, etc. In terms of an alert system, all of these are systemic issues that have to be fixed. But unless we deal with the intangibles as well, the mental health support, the counseling, we will be missing the mark. And so it will be a whole of systems approach to this. When it comes to the abuse of our women, of our children, you know, as somebody who is herself a survivor and who has had to deal with a lot of statements in the public attempting to re-victimize me and to re-victimize my children and to, I think, sort of draw me out. I have refused to succumb to that. What I am instead laser focused on is bringing solutions to the problem. And so a large part of the work that I do outside of politics on the philanthropy side has to do with dealing with this scourge of gender-based violence and of femicide. And it's a term that I want Guyanese to understand, because we talk about, oh, our women are being killed, our women are being slaughtered. There is a word for it. It is called femicide. And we have to understand its origins, we have to understand the causal factors, and we have to be bold enough to address it.
Amanza, closing remarks.
Thank you for having me. Like I said when I started, that the development of Guyana is going to be a long conversation. It is going to be one in which we'll have to face some hard truths. And Forward Guyana is committed to doing that, to respecting the people of Guyana enough to say these are the facts, this is the truth, these are the decisions before us. Not to lie or to outbid or to misinform, because we are not afraid of an informed electorate. We are not afraid of an informed people. And so whilst we boast about infrastructure and new bridges across the Demerara, etc., we must boast about the quality of the life of our people and about the quality of our Guyanese. And to be able to do that, we have to invest in our people. And that is why we are here, and that is our mission. irrespective of post-elections results. We are committed to doing this. We would absolutely want the opportunity to represent the people in Parliament and to govern this country, because we know that we can do it, but we are committed to Guyana for the long haul. We want to see real change in this country. We want to see a Guyana where our people can grow, they can thrive, a socially cohesive society, and that is why we are here. And so we would absolutely love your support for this vision, for this new Guyana, great and free, that we love so much.
Thank you so much for joining me on Sources, and all of the best.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And feel free to have us back at any time. We're always happy to come on and talk with you.
Will do. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Sources. I've been your host, Svetlana Marshall.